wanted to talk about 3D movies. Now, we all know what's been going on in the past few years in the world. And I was concerned that 3D movies might not make it back. And then somebody was talking at work about the new live action slash cartoon 3D animation thing, Lilo and Stitch. And I looked it up and it actually had a RealD option. And then, most recently, I saw the Fantastic Four First Steps was coming out in theaters, and I looked that up, and they have real 3D. Now, the two things that are in common with these films is that Disney made both of them. Even though the one is a Marvel Studios, it's still owned by Disney. And that's great. Disney's a big company. And they were probably the ones that kind of pioneered the new revolution of 3D because they released Chicken Little way back in, what was it, 2006, 2009? I don't even remember. I'd have to look it up. And that kind of was a catalyst that got a lot of 3D movies going because at that point they had digital projectors, you know, because in the 70s and 80s when 3Ds, and even in the 50s when 3D movies were super popular, the projectors were a big factor of how the 3D was failing because projectors have film, and if you have two films going side by side, they might get a little out of sync or wobbly or whatever. I know that when I rented the Jaws 3D, I could actually see, without the glasses, I could see that the movie was kind of like going bobbing up and down, almost like you were in a boat, which is kind of apropos for Jaws. But anyway, they had all kinds of problems in the 80s and probably earlier too. And you know, there were some films like Friday the 13th 3D that were actually made on the same, you had both pictures on the same film. I think they turned it that way or something, I don't know, but they stacked it somehow. And so they were able, they had a really wide film for that apparently. So they were able to get both images in it because the camera they used for it apparently had the camera lens going this way, and then it had kind of like an offshoot thing that was made with a mirror. So it was like splitting the lens or something. I don't know. I didn't actually see the camera. I keep trying to find scraps of information that I can, whatever I can find about what that camera might have looked like, but I have never seen the camera. But apparently it had, I'm pretty sure the way they described it, it had a mirror off to the side. So it was like one lens was here and then there was kind of like a mirror thing. I don't know. You probably remember, if you have studied 3D at all, like I have, that they actually had one for camcorders in like the 90s, I guess, where you could plug your input from your camcorder into the little device thing, and it had the thing where your lens would go through, and then it would have this offshoot mirror thing, and you could adjust the mirror and it would go, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was similar to that idea, I guess, but they were using interlace to actually put the two images in. So because your cameras actually worked in interlace back then, that's how it went all into one, kind of like the Sony 3D camera that I have. It uses interlace to put it in, even though the camera itself doesn't actually, you know, when you output a video, it's not going to be interlaced, but they use that extra data to take the other picture, so you get two full HD screens. But anyway, I'm kind of nerding out. So I was really excited to see the 3D movies have come back, and hopefully, like I said, Disney's a big company, so hopefully other people will follow along like they did way in the early 2000s, and we'll see more and more 3D movies come out. You know, I was saying, okay, what are they going to do? How are they going to deal with the glasses? They used to have you throw them in a recycling bin, and then they would spray them with this antiseptic stuff or something and use them again. Now, some places threw them out. Maybe that's what they're going to do now. Maybe they're just going to toss them. You know, we pay enough for those 3D movies, just that extra amount to see the movie in 3D, that they could probably afford to throw the plastic out. Especially if it's made with corn or something like that. That would be, you know, we got a lot of corn here. So, and also in the movies, we've got a lot of corn, unfortunately. So anyway, that's it. and I'll see you next time.